Hello and welcome to the Southbound Sports Show. I'm your host, Richie Leahy, here with my co-host, Matty B. And it finally happened. Jim Harbaugh got his penalty from the NCAA. He's going to be given a 4-year show cause penalty, which means teams can't hire him. Which, big deal. Who's going to hire him? And where's he even going to go? Right? It's not like he had a dream job of like coaching somewhere else. They also gave him a 1-year suspension, which again, he's not even there anymore. So I'm not sure what the direction is. I see a lot of people that are excited about it. Like, there are going to be more penalties to come. And I'm like, for what? Like, I thought everything was in that listing, right? The scouting was in there. Unless there's a separate investigation going on that or like they broke it out that I'm not aware of, that they can come back. But you also remember, he was suspended for what, 6 games last year? So they suspended him in total for an entire season, plus 6 games, and then another like 3 to 4 years for not really much. If I'm being honest, like I read through the thing, there was a book coming out by like some reporter saying that like his frame of referencing like other coaches interviewing were kind of about the NCAA targeting Harbaugh from like that direction, saying that they had like lawyer statements saying, hey, we're going to accept the punishment. I guess the 3 or the 4 game suspension that he was supposed to do at the beginning of last year, the NCAA, I think it was like whatever the investigation committee, they accepted it. So Michigan thought it was case closed. And then some higher ups at the NCAA said like, oh no, we can't work on this. So after Michigan thought that it was over, they came back and said like, no. And he said, from what I read, it's like the board that denied it had like 2 Ohio State alums on it and like a USC alum. And the USC, I think, might have been connected to the Big Ten. And they were supposed to recuse themselves, like a not vote. But they definitely voted against Harbaugh. And it's like, all right, then what are you talking about? If the group accepts it and then they come back and vote and say like, no, they were saying Harbaugh's too big of a name. We have to make a show out of him or whatever, like to deter other people from doing the COVID stuff. But I looked at the COVID penalties and it was watching people work out over Zoom. Like, that's not even that big of a deal, right? They said it was like during the dead period or something, was whenever the cheeseburger thing happened, where Harbaugh said, and based in the testimony, he said that he didn't remember it. They said, here's the receipt, you got a cheeseburger. And he said, well, if someone ordered a cheeseburger for breakfast, then I was there. That was me. He's like, I'm the only one that does that. Like, that's the entire back and forth. And then the NCAA was like, well, we told you, you're lying to us. And he was like, I just told you I didn't remember. And I guess another Michigan guy was there, Grant Newsome. I think he's the offensive line coach now. And he said the same thing. He didn't remember it happening. They showed him the receipts, and they accepted his apology. So Harbaugh's lawyer was like, wait a second. The same exact thing, you're letting him go with an apology. And they said like, oh, he wasn't combative like Jim. Which is just like that's their feeling, right? So I didn't read I read like a lot of it that came out last week, the more details. And to me, personally, I didn't see anything in there that was more damning evidence. The Connor Steins thing was 100% in there because they confirmed that it was him on the Central Michigan sideline. They also confirmed that no coaches were connected to that. Like, there was no text or anything that connected Stallions to the other coaches or whatever. I think the other 3 coaches or whatever that did the Zoom workouts, one was Denard Robinson. He got canned because he did a DUI, so he's not there anymore. Partridge got canned for telling students not to talk to the NCAA, which is hilarious because like that's good advice, right? If it's the police, like don't go giving them information. Talk to your lawyer first. I've actually heard that he's suing the NCAA because they drug his name through this. and he wants to be cleared because he said he did nothing wrong, like he's not connected to Stallions at all, and they keep putting the document in, making it seem like he was working with Stallions, right? So I'm curious to see what the Stallions documentary is about, because if Partridge sues the NCAA and gets cleared of Stallions, then that means no one on the Michigan staff is connected to Stallions then. Because he's the one that they connected them to, saying that Stallions was hired or got a paid position because he had a connection through Partridge, because Partridge came from New Jersey or whatever. But whenever Stallions was in the military or the Marines, he had a connection that connected him to Partridge that helped him get the paid gig on Michigan staff. So if Partridge is able to sue the NCAA and get his name cleared, then Stallions really doesn't have any connection to anyone on the staff, which would be like a big whatever, you know?
That's the thing, though, that I find just so bizarre with the whole thing is it's like nobody talks to him, nobody's around him, but somehow he has a paid position at a big university, and it's just like can just do whatever he wants to do. Like it's so bizarre.
Well, see, that's why I think the only thing that makes sense is he's a low-level guy. Most of the things that he was like sharing back and forth with were like from other grad students or whatever. Like, you know, they're not inviting all of the grad assistants to like all the head coaches meetings, right? There's going to be levels. Like, I don't know, the people not play sports or like do anything like with the executives or whatever. Harbaugh's not calling in all like the volunteer help and telling him every game plan to break it down, right? The one thing that they released were like texts and stuff from Connor Stallions where he was telling the younger guys that even in his own text, he was saying that the coaches didn't really want to like hang out and talk to them. They just needed to give them information that they could use, which backs my theory that he was hoping that he could provide a service, start his own like scouting company, PDF, whatever you want to do, like whatever he wants to do, he's giving them a deliverable. So he's not really like hanging out with the coaches, but he said that if you can put it in a way that coach can actually find it useful, this is like his exact words, then they will listen to you. But he made it seem like they were kind of just ignoring him. Like he was just like a low level guy, excited to be there, would come up and be like, hey, you should know, I noticed this, like this. And coach is probably like, all right, awesome. Yeah, we'll think about using it, right? That's how his own writing from like the NCAA released documents, because they released like hundreds of pages. I was reading through to kind of see what the smoking gun was. And like that was it, him telling other staffers on Michigan that like, hey, you need to put the information together and give it to them, which must have been those PDF sheets, right? Didn't they have like a play sheet? That was one of the Ohio State things, right? Ohio State just magically had a recording of Michigan sideline, which is illegal. And the funny thing is that play that Ohio State fans keep talking about, that Stallions knew their play, they scored a touchdown on. Which goes against everything they said. Like, if it's so impactful and you're smoking gun, you're scoring a touchdown, then what the hell are you talking about? The NCAA even said that it doesn't make a big deal. The other thing that came back up in the documents that the media doesn't talk about is it was confirmed that Purdue did receive the play, like Michigan's same exact sheet that Connor Stallions was digging up. Ohio State and Rutgers both sent them to Purdue before the Big Ten championship game. So you can't ignore that fact, because to me, that's more against sportsmanship than anything, right? Hey, our rival's playing in the championship game. We really want them to lose. Here's everything we have on them. Go get them, Purdue. Like, what the hell? Right? Like, that doesn't make any sense. So like, that's the one thing, like, these are all confirmed. So that's why people that are saying like, oh, death penalty, can't wait. I think even at this point, like Thamel, however you say his name, he's been the one that's been like anti-Michigan the whole time. Even he came out and said like, look, now that all the information's out there, it would be really weird for them to like do any other further punishments. The only one that's kind of unknown right now is Sharon Moore. Now remember, he was suspended last year for 1 game. So he's already done some time. Now, they said that he had been deleting texts. Of course, the ESPN's version was that he deleted them as soon as they wanted to interview him. His version of them in the NCAA document was that he just randomly deletes texts. And it's not a big deal because the university has them saved. So whenever they looked at his phone, they were like, why are all these texts deleted? He said, I always delete them. I can get them back for you. He went back to the school and he printed them out and gave them to him. So the reporting made it seem like he was hiding something. He made it seem like he just doesn't like to have tons of texts on his phone. And he knew that per the policy, they would have them, which he gave him like right away. So to me, that doesn't seem like he's doing anything fishy. And like I've said before, no one knows who the hell he is. So like if Michigan, like let's say they punish him in this year and Michigan has an awful year and like Michigan goes like 6-6 or something and Sharon Moore gets fired. Like why? I don't understand that. If you're mad at Jim Harbaugh, he kind of took all the other staff with him because that's the one thing people kept saying like, oh, he took all the guys with him that are guilty. The only other guy he took with him, I think, was the DB coach. Was it Clinksdale? And his only thing in the document was he got someone's Instagram verified. Like, how's that a penalty? I guarantee that wasn't in the rule book. I guarantee there's no rule that says you can't get an Instagram verified, right? Because half the old dudes writing that probably don't even know what an Instagram is. So I don't know. There was nothing in there that made it seem like, hey, new information, Michigan's going to get hammered. It's more like, okay, you keep saying that you have all this evidence. Where is it? Like, what's the other evidence to connecting everything? The play sheet? You just said that you had one for Purdue. From Ohio State. Ohio State literally gave them the same exact thing Connor Science had that was a smoking gun. I think they can deconfirm that thing. Remember the other coach was like hacking into someone's email or something. They said that wasn't connected. He's not even anywhere near this. That was a different criminal thing, which made me think that was more like, who knows what he was into, like a relationship with a student or something. I don't know. So that's the more plausible reason for that one, I guess. They said it's not connected. They said this should end it. We'll see what happens. The AP poll that came out, though, Georgia #1. Florida State's in the poll. Michigan's like 9. They kept making a big deal about Michigan being the farthest to fall. They're like the only national champ in the past 20 years that had their coach like go to the NFL right after. I don't even think Pete Carroll did that, right? Did he jump right away? No, because they lost it.
I don't think.
I don't know what year he left. But they were kind of on the down. Like they didn't win a national championship and he jumped. I don't believe. Right? They lost to Texas. They had won one. I think they won another one, right? Did he win 2? Or no, maybe he only won the one. Wasn't the other one a shared title? Like the BCS had a thing, but they got an AP pool?
I don't remember.
I'm going to try to look it up real quick. Because that's the one thing people talk about, like, oh, Jim Harbaugh pulled the Pete Carroll. It's like, all right, well, he was already suspended, though. Like, Pete Carroll wasn't suspended throughout the year. Like, when Harbaugh left, he probably assumed he wasn't going to get any more punishment, right? He served a 6-game suspension. This is unprecedented what he got. It's unprecedented. And I saw someone made the point that the Michigan one is so egregious, it's worse than like what Kansas or Tennessee or what's the other one? The Tar Heels did. Or no, is that the Kansas, UNC, and then there was another one. Like whatever, or Tennessee, I think. The 3 biggest scandals. Tennessee was paying players. Their excuse was everyone's doing it, and now it's legal. How is that a thing? Because Michigan could say the same thing. Like, oh, now there's helmets or whatever, comms and helmets. Isn't it legal now? It was already legal to begin with. Stealing signs was legal. Because they keep bringing it up. I think the one NCAA thing made a point to say that, like, Clemson, they were praised for stealing signs the year they beat Ohio State, right? Because Ohio State keeps bringing it up. It makes it seem like Ohio State's behind half of it, right? I think they also confirmed that it came from a disgruntled coach, which I'm pretty sure that everyone knows who it is. Michigan brought back their player personnel guy, Courtney Morgan, which I found very interesting. Because you talked about Stallions having a direct. impact. So Courtney Morgan came to Michigan like 2021, I think, right when they went on their run. Then he went to Washington, where they also went on their run. So I'm wondering if he has, like, his recruiting connections or whatever he's doing, talent evaluation, because, I mean, he's bringing in a lot of transfers, right, to both Washington and Michigan. Remember, Penix, he wasn't at Washington forever. He was at Indiana. So I'm wondering if Courtney Morgan has that connection, and he's kind of the reason behind it, because now he's at Alabama. So if Alabama starts getting top-tier transfers, keep an eye on that, because DeBoer obviously thought he was a key piece to their run to the national championship game. But Michigan had another guy ran out of town, and he was the one that supposedly reported everything originally. And it seems like they tracked it down to where it was only the one guy, and it was his interpretation saying that Harbaugh made it seem like he wanted him to go above and beyond whatever the line was. Which just seems like, how is that a thing? Right? Like, sorry, officer, I thought he wanted me to kill that person. It's like, oh, well, then I guess he's guilty and you're not. Like, all right, you're off the hook. Because that's my whole thing with some of the investigations. Like, UNC's thing was clear. They had fake classes for their athletes specifically. And just because they randomly left it open for everybody, they're somehow more clean than what Michigan's cheeseburger thing is. Like, it makes no sense. And remember, I think Ohio State also had the same allegations about extra coaching and stuff during the COVID period. Already off the books. No big deal. Ryan Day, he's a great cooperator. Works with the NCAA, hangs out with them. He lets them know there's nothing there. Going back to the AP poll, though, I don't understand how Notre Dame is ranked so high. So I look through the top rankings, and I see some teams like have, all right, so-and-so are coming back. And I also noticed that a lot of the top teams have new quarterbacks, which is usually a predictor. And that's the thing that's being used against Michigan. But for some reason, it's not used against like Oregon or Ohio State. Or, I mean, they're not bringing in undefeated QBs, right, into their system. So Notre Dame, new QB. Then their guy Hartman or whatever, he went, he had to graduate because he's like 100 years old. So gone. The reason I read it seems like everyone that voted for them in the top 10 wrote like easy schedule. Okay, well then why isn't Liberty in the top 10? Right? You're not ranking it who has the easiest schedule. That makes no sense. It's supposed to be the top teams.
Well, I feel like with Liberty, their bowl game against Oregon kind of put them in a bad spot.
I'm just using them as an example, though, coming into the year. They have a ranked squad. You look at their schedule. Do you see any losses on it? Probably not. That's kind of what the poll voters are doing for Notre Dame, though. Like, they don't play anybody.
But I think they look at that as it's brand name Notre Dame versus relatively new Liberty, that they're not going to give them that bump until they show they can consistently do it.
Because reading the difference between a Notre Dame and a Penn State, it seems like, oh, Penn State has an easy schedule, but they're probably going to lose if they make it to the Big Ten championship game because they're not really that good. Where Notre Dame, it's like, you're not going to lose till you get in the playoffs, and you're probably going to get your face smashed in by 50 points. Like normal. Like, what are you doing? So that's where I wonder, like, put them at 15. Like that's an unknown. Because that's the one thing that I read. It's like, I read the predictions and like their models, and all of ESPN's models had both Florida State and Michigan at the same thing. There's no chance they're going to go undefeated, and like there's a good chance they could go like 6-6. I'm like, 6-6? Like, what are you talking about? Maybe if like everyone gets hurt, but like Michigan's defense is enough to probably win 8 games at minimum. And same with like Florida State. Like, you can't say Notre Dame plays nobody because they play the ACC schedule or whatever. And then Florida State plays the same schedule, and you look at that and how talented they are and say, oh, that's a 6-6 squad, my man. Please. For Florida State, because it's not like they just went undefeated, right?
Well, and that's bulletin board material. Like, I feel like,
didn't Notre Dame just lose to Marshall like a year or two ago?
yeah,
So it's like you don't know. They have a better chance of being 6-6 than whatever. I don't get it. I don't get it. And I think I've seen a lot of Clemson people get really mad about the Florida State thing and them being ranked higher. And it's like, what's Clemson do? Like, Clemson had a chance last year, and they blew it.
I'll take it a step further. Why wouldn't you start them off higher? They had one of the highest ranked transfer portal quarterbacks come in. They returned a bunch of starters on defense. They took, for as highly touted as Alabama is, they received a pile of Alabama transfers that you would think would make your overall roster somewhat better than what it was a year ago. And you address the biggest issue, that the quarterback issue is now resolved. You have a new starting quarterback that has veteran playing experience and winning in the ACC, to boot. I think that they should have been within that top 4 or 5 ranking to start the year off, knowing that they went undefeated, won their conference last year, and still have a pile of returning players.
And that's where I think some of the predictions and stuff, people say like, oh, you should do the AP poll later. And I know it doesn't really matter at this point because things are going to be kind of fixed out. But it's just, it feels like they're just doing it on gut feeling. I did look up Pete Carroll. I was right. He won the 2 championships, 2003 and 2004. The 3 one was not the BCS one, right? They were 12-1. I don't think they won, or did they win that one? Or maybe that was the year. I don't know, but I think that theirs it wasn't a clean year. Maybe I'm wrong. But I thought that there was like a split championship in there somewhere where they won the AP, but not the BCS one. Because that's the one where I'm kind of like, yeah, that's the year. So they won the BCS Rose Bowl over Michigan, but the BCS championship game was LSU beating Oklahoma. That was Nick Saban's first championship in 2003. So who the hell claims a split championship in the BCS era? Pete Carroll. And the second one was another one that could have been split because Auburn went undefeated, I think. Yeah, Auburn went undefeated. They were 13-0. And that's the year that USC had to vacate ones because of the sanctions, which no one cares about anyway. But he ran to the NFL after 2009. They went 9-4. So he had already fallen off. And then he ran. Harbaugh just won the national championship and then took a promotion to the NFL. So I keep hearing these people connected to college say, like, the NFL's going to suspend Harbaugh for the entire year. If that happened, that would be so out of left field that, like, the NFL, it would be so weird because they keep talking about Tressel's thing. Oh, Tressel had to get suspended, but Tressel wasn't a head coach. He was like a defensive guy or something at that point, right? He was like an assistant. Yeah. No one wanted him as the head coach. The Chargers aren't going to hire a guy as a head coach and then read that report that I read and come out and say, well, this guy's a pure cheater, right? It'd be different if he was like Orgeron or something or heck, even like Sarkisian to a point where you win, but like not enough everywhere you've been. And then all of a sudden you're like up in the top, like 2 or 3. Like if Texas would have won the national championship last year after Sarkisian flamed out at USC, then I would have been kind of suspicious if they were like, yeah, they think he's cheating because of stealing signs. But Harbaugh won with the Niners in the NFL, and his impact was so great that the Niners still build their roster based on Harbaugh's preferences. That roster is a Jim Harbaugh roster. Like they tried to do it opposite when Harbaugh left, and they immediately tanked, and then they brought back in Harbaugh type guys, and the Niners have been running that ever since, and they've been close to winning a championship again, with a run heavy offense and a game managing quarterback. You can deny it all you want, but that's true. They brought the Jim Harbaugh blueprint and they brought it back. He won at San Diego. He won at Stanford. Who the hell wins at Stanford? He actually built Stanford up so good with culture that they kept winning and then finally have fallen off recently. So that's what I've been saying. If he comes in the NFL and they start just crushing teams or winning very heavily with the Chargers, it's going to make a lot of people just look dumb. Like, oh, Harbaugh couldn't win until he had Steins. It's like he had already won at Stanford. No one wins at Stanford.
Well, I think he's gonna have that similar blueprint that Campbell's running with Detroit, and I think if you can steal time of possession, I think that's a way to counter some of these higher octane quarterbacks. That if they get the ball last, they're winning.
And that's how he has a high octane quarterback himself anyway. This would probably be the most talented quarterback he's had in the NFL, right? I don't think Herbert's hurt. So
he's banged up, but I think he's okay.
And so that's where the other thing, J.J. McCarthy, he's been getting the same knock. He got hurt, just a meniscus injury. I hope he comes back 100%. They don't know how bad it is until they get in there. That's what happened to me, right? And then they're like, it's not too bad. And that's why I regret having it. But, I mean, he's in the NFL, so if they're paying him millions of dollars, they tell him to have a surgery, you have the surgery, right? Not like figuring it out. But he had a hell of a game. Basically, if you listen to my scouting report of him from the draft, it was spot on. He's going to throw like an interception where you're like, what the hell are you doing? Probably early in the game, right? Which is what that one was, one of his first throws. Like, look at the Rose Bowl against Bama. His first throw was almost an interception. Then once he settles down, he's on. He's running out of tackles, collapsing pockets, throwing 2 touchdowns. He's the highest QBR right now for the preseason. And then he gets hurt. And I saw a lot of people saying like, oh yeah, J.J. McCarthy, he's already looking like a bust. I'm like, looking like a bust? He was the best out of all the rookies. What are you talking about? Looking like a bust? It makes no sense. Although I get a lot of like alerts for the Packers now. And I saw a lot of things. It was like, Jordan Love looking like he can throw the deep ball after that preseason performance. He ran like 3 plays. What the hell are you talking about? He can throw the deep ball now? So the analysts right now in preseason are just driving me nuts, dude. They should just have one preseason week, maybe. Or not even. Just have scrimmages. Like, that's what I don't get. They also do scrimmages, right? Because Jordan Love's scrimmaging this week. He's not playing in the game. Then why have preseason at all? I don't get it. They pretend like it's not to try rookies out in game. But that's exactly what it is because there's no minor league. It's just to see like, oh, is J.J. McCarthy like looking decent? Oh, he did look decent. Oh, what the hell? Maybe we can go with him over, what do they have, Sam Darnold now? All right, awesome. So that's my take on basically college and the NFL preseason. A lot of overhype right now. Let's see how it goes. I watched some of the Steeler games. They didn't look good, right? Did you watch any of that?
I did, and there were glimmers. Like, I feel like with Russell Wilson, or with Justin Fields, he is what we thought he is. Like, he had some fumbled snaps, he had some rough plays. Allen afterward missed a wide open throw in the end zone, but they made the score closer than what it was perceived to be in the end. I think if it were a regular season game and you had Wilson starting, I think that you're there. But I think it also shined the highlight on if the Niners are serious about shopping Ayuk, why, depending on what they're asking for in return, I would pull the trigger on it.
Get your bidding fingers ready, buddy. Fantasy through the roof. You can get him, Fields, and Russell Wilson probably for a discount. Double up those points. Because I watched the Browns-Packers game, like the entire thing. And the Packers just looked like such a better organization that I could see the Browns trading for Ayuk. Do they need him? No. but they would give up key pieces just for. They're like at Raider level right now, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Where,
You just want to win right now so desperately that you're willing to cut your nose off to spite your face.
because like even the plan for them playing guys, it seemed like they were just not together. And I wasn't even cheering for them, but like they didn't have a cohesive game plan. And it just seemed like they're ready to just go out there and try to bring in talent, and then they're going to hope that it gels. Where it was like the Packers, like I know the Packers are still young, but like they had a plan. Hey, we're going to have Jordan Love play a series. Oh, he scored a touchdown. He's done. Then Sean Clifford came in, and granted, he had some throws that were kind of like not there, but he moved the ball, and they had clean plays where things were open. He made the right read, and I thought like, oh, if this is going well, why can't the Browns do the same thing? Like I think they have Huntley, right? So it's like they have a quarterback that has experience. What are they doing? So I watched the game and I was kind of just shocked because I thought maybe the Browns will make a move this year, but they haven't really done anything. Yeah, they had Huntley. He was their backup. I thought so, because he played well for the Ravens. So for him to come in and look like they just didn't know anything to do with him, you would think that they would have been already fielding that offense to fit him and Watson, thinking that they're going to be similar QBs, but they just didn't look good. And I know it's the preseason game one, so who cares? A lot of teams go like 0-4 in the preseason, and then they come out and they're like 15-2 or something. So it's just about getting guys experience and touches, and kind of putting together what you're doing. But I am glad that they have kind of like the accelerated preseason now, where it seems like a lot of the games are kind of quickening up. Did you see that they're doing that Friday game now?
I don't know.
I thought they couldn't do Friday because of high school deals, right? So they did like the preseason one, but I thought for sure they said that they're having their first Friday game. I just looked it up right now and I didn't see it. So maybe it was just preseason before college, and that's kind of what they're advertising. But they made it seem like the Packers-Eagles are going to be on a Friday night. I think that's where I was watching the game, and that's where I thought that's what it said that it was going to be. Yeah, it's Friday, September 6th. Packers-Eagles on Peacock in Sao Paulo. So maybe that's why. But like I thought why have a Friday game? Even Michigan didn't want to play on a Friday when the Big Ten told them, "Hey, you guys got to play on Friday." They're like, "Nah, we're not going to do that." And then the Big Ten, they bowed down. They recognized. That's why they hate it. That's what people keep telling me. They're like, "Hey, don't worry, the Big Ten will rally around Michigan." It's like, no, they hate us, dude. They're not rallying around at all. So that'll be a good game. I did get. Did I talk about? So they had that Peacock deal. It was like $20 for the year. So I nabbed it a couple weeks ago, or might be a month ago now, or whatever. Because I knew that the Big Ten was going to be on there. And I want to say their app is garbage. I've never seen an app that after you click on an event to watch the Olympics live or football or whatever, the first thing it does before it loads the event is run an ad, and then it crashes. And so if you don't get it to load, you're watching like 3 or 4 ads before it even tries to load the game. And I'm thinking, how is this not a scam? Because I guarantee they're making money off all those ads they show you as their feed crashes. And I've never seen another thing like that. Normally, if you click on it, it starts right into the game, and then it will show you an ad, right? Not load an ad, which never crashes, of course. The ad always works. And then when it gets down to 1 second, it just freezes. And I tried it on my phone, on my computer, and my TV, so I know it's not just like the TV app or my TV being too old or something. So if that happens during college football, I'm going to be very annoyed. I have to start sending in my letters to the Gov. Telling them like, yo, they're scamming me here, bro. Running these ads and having it freeze with 1 second left. Are you kidding me? I forget what I tried to turn on. It was one of the games, one of the NFL games I think was on, and I almost missed like the end because or maybe it was the women's basketball or something, which I want to talk about anyway. I think it was maybe the men's or women's basketball game that was on there, and it kept crashing and crashing, and I'm like, what am I doing? Like, why are they making me do this? But did you watch the Olympic basketball games this weekend?
No, I saw very little of. I saw some highlights, and that was about it.
How are the games so close? Like, they played Serbia, I think is who they played the semifinal game, and like they have one guy is taking down an entire team of all-stars and who people consider the greatest NBA player of all time, LeBron. And it's like, that's not true.
But I think the issue with that team is that compared to some of the other Olympic teams, there's good players and then there's good teams. I think it goes back to that comment you said about Cleveland, where they're just trying to buy, and you see the Redskins where they get the best. They try to find who's the top free agent and they get them. Well, that just because they're the best at their respective positions doesn't mean that their cohesiveness is going to translate to the field and to the court and to be more successful. I think they're trying to just cherry pick these athletes, and then there's not a really good system in place of how do we want them to work together to win.
Yeah, but that's a coach's job. Like, Serbia had Jokic, that's it, right? They had him, and there might have been one other shooter on that team. If he's killing Embiid, switch the role up. Like, Tatum's not playing. They made a big deal about like having Tatum on the team, but then he's disgruntled because he's not getting minutes. And it's like, yeah, we're all watching the same game. Embiid ain't doing shit. Like, what are you doing? Why is he out there? Go small ball. Like, try to mix it up. Double him with LeBron. Like, do something. Like, you're letting Jokic just kill you. How is he beating 5 All-Stars? Like, these are people considered like the greatest of all time. Luckily, we had Steph, dude. If we didn't have Steph Curry, we would have lost those games. That would have been a bronze team. Steph got hot at the end of the game and hit like 2 or 3 threes in a row in both games. I think 4 in the gold medal game. Where if he misses those, United States loses. Like, I think was the gold medal, they ended up winning by 11. And all 12 of those points to get that lead were all Curry. If he misses those shots, United States loses by 1. Like, that's how bad it was. Like, they weren't even able to get a shot off. It was just Steph Curry jacking up a 3 and making it. Like, that's what I expected them to do, like, the entire game. And they didn't do it. And they did kind of mix it up. And it's like, all right, well, what do you, like, you shouldn't be losing to Serbia. You just shouldn't. That's what goes back to my NFL like comments where there's little chance in a basketball game when you have 5 dudes that are considered like supposed to be the best of all time. Because even like going back to the Dream Team, like they won every game by like 30 points. And you can't say that the international team's gotten that much better or, ooh, now they have an NBA player on that team. It's like they have won. Every night you have NBA teams that are losing by 30 points. Our guys can't go down and get what they want? Like they can't get open or hit shots? That's what I don't understand. And the women's team was even worse because they had the exact same thing. France had one girl that wanted it, and she should have put the game to overtime. Her foot was on the line. I don't know if you saw that.
No.
The United States team is so old, and like they put, who did they have on there? One of the old like ladies didn't even play. Like they couldn't stop France's girl, and she came down at the end of the game. And they were down 3. She hits the shot at the buzzer, but her foot was on the line. Like it should have went to overtime, and they would have had all the momentum, and the United States would have lost. Because at the end of that game, the United States didn't have a scorer at all. That's why when they were like, oh, Caitlin Clark isn't ready, the United States had no one that could score the ball. They had no one that could do anything. It was embarrassing. It's like watching a bad high school game is what a lot of people were commenting. Because if no one can score the ball and they're just having turnovers and like doing whatever, they said that if you would have put Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark on there to get them some scores, the United States probably would have won every game by like 20 points. But instead they went like, oh, we're going to have our veteran lineup. And then they were celebrating that they've won like 8 golds in a row. Like, who cares? You're the only country playing women's basketball. What are you doing? Why are you celebrating that? Like, that one person almost won France the gold, just like Jokic almost won Serbia the gold in the men's game. And they very well could have. They were line step from tying that game and sending it to overtime, the women's, and Steph Curry heat check from losing that game. They could easily have the bronze. They played better in the gold medal game. I think that bronze game really scared the crap out of them because even LeBron was more aggressive and like not doing his like little, I'm just going to run into 4 people and throw it up in the air real fast and then have it go down and they just rebound it. Because that's what he was kind of doing. And of course, Serbia stopping it. And Durant was just dribbling around and taking long shots. And it's like, you're missing them. What are you doing? And I just don't get it. Like, I just don't get it. If you put the United States together on another sport like football and you had like Mahomes would not need a game-winning touchdown to beat a team from like Serbia or something. Like, that would be impossible. We would crush them worse than like what Georgia crushed Florida State last year in that bowl game. Right?
Like IMG versus Bishop Sycamore. Yeah.
That's what it'd be like. It's almost like whatever team, you're just going to run it up. It's like the D1 schools, like an SEC team playing who knows whatever they're playing. Just like some garbage team that they always schedule 4 of a year because they need the break. And they win by 70. That's what it would be like. And that's what I expected because they are talking about the dream team's the greatest. Until the other men's team can do that again, there's no debate. They're talking about like how they're going to have a special card signed from like LeBron and Steph because it's such a momentous moment of them coming together. It's like, you guys barely won. Barely won. And it was making me feel bad for the other team. It was like a reverse Miracle on Ice, right? Where it's like, holy crap, they're going to beat these dudes and then that's going to be it. And Steph Curry said that the only thing he needed to like round out his career that a lot of other guys had, like he had the championships and whatever, the MVPs. The only thing he wanted is a gold medal, and give him credit because he wanted himself. He wanted himself. So I got to give him a shout out because I like Steph Curry. I think is he jumping around teams, forming super teams? No. Is he complaining a lot at the refs? Not that I've seen. So I can't hate on Steph Curry. He didn't go to a big time college. Maybe that wasn't his choice or whatever. I don't know how the recruiting went. But he's kind of won wherever he's gone. And he won the United States the gold medal. All those other guys like Steve Kerr, like his coaching is just so garbage that if he didn't have Steph Curry on his team in the NBA, he probably wouldn't have won any championships. Like, that's how bad the coaching job was in the Olympics. And it like they had Spoelstra there and that guy from Gonzaga. It's like these guys are doing nothing.
Yeah.
Like go get him LeBron. They should just made LeBron player coach because that's kind of what he was doing. Embarrassing. I think do we win? No, we didn't win the most golds, did we? Did we end up tied with China? The Olympics disappeared. I don't know if you like once it was over, like no one talked about it anymore. Except for
yeah,
me.
it went away, and then I was like, when I was looking at how many competitors we have, I was like, are you allowed to just have like 7,000 more participants than any other country?
They just have to make the qualifiers. That's where, yeah. So we tied with 40, but then we had like 30 more medals than them overall because we also won the silver and we won the bronze. So they were saying like United States and China tied. Like, no, we didn't. We killed them. Like it wasn't even close. And they took the bronze away from like one of our gymnasts which was another cluster, and why I never, like, I don't know how you can be into gymnastics when they can just change their mind and like change the scoring, right? I don't know if, did you
Yeah.
follow that?
Yeah.
So she didn't do her thing or whatever. The United States appealed, said there was video of her doing it. They give her a point, like a tenth of a point back or whatever, so she gets bronze. Then they said, oh, they didn't throw the red flag soon enough. And then the United States is like, well, look at us throwing the red flag here on the tape. We had 4 seconds to spare. And then they were like, no, our decision's final. We said you didn't throw it in time. Like basically the NCAA moving on Harbaugh, right? So they're like, nah, you're not getting that call, sir. And now they're saying that she might get it because the public's kind of pissed about it. So I don't know. I just wish there was more transparency, right?
Yeah.
It goes for like all the other decisions because there was like conspiracies flowing around like the women's boxing. Like just put everything out there so that everyone knows, and then you wouldn't have conspiracies floating around, right?
Makes sense.
You're putting them out there. They're marketing themselves, whatever they're doing. Let the people decide. That's why, like the Olympics, like you're saying, United States has a bazillion qualifiers. Awesome. That's why I thought it was funny that like small countries like Ireland are just randomly winning golds that they normally don't do. And they're like super pumped about it because I saw they were having like gigantic parades and celebrations. I was like, good for them. Good for them to go out there, win a bunch of golds, and then be excited about it. Because like a lot of countries, like they're celebrating like a bronze. Go for gold. I don't even know how many countries had some of the golds. Like the one, I think it was a rifle shooting from one of the Latin American countries. Like their country had never won anything. And she went out and won a gold. I thought, good for her. Going out there shooting. People were celebrating that one guy for shooting for like turkey in like sweatpants. Because he looked like he didn't care. That's the kind of the games I like. When you're just kind of out there hanging out. But they should do like I don't know how they can make it better. I don't know how they can fix what you're talking about. Because if they have the United States regional or whatever, the Americas regional, I think is how they do it. And a bunch of Americans hit the qualifying time. Because you've seen cool runnings, right?
Yes.
So there's a time you have to hit. Like if you're running, you have to hit that time. And anyone that makes it, they do qualifiers. I don't know if there's a limit, like if the time adjusts. Because in cool runnings, remember, they adjusted that time. But we'll see what's up. Is there anything else you want to talk about? I don't think I have anything else.
No, my final bell, just as we're getting into it. Excited to see some of those fantasy breakdowns that we'll have in the next coming weeks, and we appreciate all the support so far.
Yeah, I was going to mention fantasy. We're doing our draft a little bit early this year, based on I did a voting poll, and you would think more people would vote right now. Only half the league voted, so I like refreshing it 300 times. Like, all right, this has to be the last people. And then I'm like, finally, I posted it, and I'm like, all right, vote, baby, vote it up. If you don't vote it up, you can't be upset with the draft time. But it actually works out well for me, so I'm going to try to like do another Skype call for it. And I did have one other thing for my final bell. It was Florida State related. I think it was tied to their court case. There's been some movement with that 2027 date where now they're saying that they might get out. And part of the thing that I saw, that they did an independent study. I don't know if you saw this, where they concluded that Florida State's one of like 8 schools with like the Notre Dames, Michigans, Ohio States that could make it as an independent. So keep an eye on that. What if Florida State goes independent and doesn't go to the Big 12 or wherever they're saying they're going to go?
It makes sense for the uptick in slander from ESPN. If they're feeling like, well, they're going to peace out anyhow, just start poking holes at them.
Because if you think, what is Notre Dame? They're not making Big Ten money, but they're like slightly below the SEC, and they're hoping they make it up with like playoff appearances, right? Florida State could easily do the same exact thing. And it's not like the Big 12 wouldn't schedule them. right?
Yeah.
And the SEC schedules them anyway. With like Florida, they only have an 8-game schedule, so they have to fill it with non-conference. Who's saying that Florida State couldn't play like South Carolina and Florida every year or something like that and just do regional games? But all right, you cool to wrap up? Anything else you want to talk about?
Nope, I'm good.
All right, cool. Well, thanks for listening, and we will see you next week.